What's going on, everyone? Matic here, and today we're going over basic attack patterns for weapons. Weapons, what are they good for?
Absolutely nothing.
Well, first thing, they're cool. But in order to be cool with them, we have to know how to use them. The first thing we're going to do is go over basic attack patterns. So when I was first kind of really studying weaponry, especially handheld weapons, older type weapons, stuff like swords and knives and all that mess, I was watching kind of everything or trying to get all the bits of information that I could to find commonalities between them, and then try to devise training methods that covers a broad range of weaponry without getting into the nuance of them until later. And when it comes to attack patterns, they're roughly kind of the same depending on the weapon. The only thing that really changes is how you hold it or whether or not you use one or two hands. So when I am just kind of making sure that my basics or my foundation is right, I use a basic pie chart pattern divided up into eights. In the previous weapon video that I talked about, Doug Marcaida or people in the Kali community, they usually talk about using a clock face, but most people are more familiar with either a pie, the cutting of a pie, or just pie charts in general. And so I devise, at least that works for me, because I use the word different things at the same time, this particular flow drill. It's a flow drill. It's not designed to give you really big power or anything like that. It's just to get you familiar with movement. And the basic of it is really you start up high, come down, up, across, back, straight across, so two horizontals, come here, then up, down, and you just continue going within the same overall circular pattern. Now, what on earth did I just do there? A lot of things. So I'm doing two primary things when I do this. One, when I am making my quote-unquote cuts, I am making sure that I'm treating the tip of my weapon is like a marker or a pencil, something to mark with. So when I'm going to do a downward cut, I don't focus on my hand coming straight down. I concentrate on the tip coming straight down, like I am drawing a line. The same thing if I'm going up at a diagonal, I draw with the tip. I don't move my arm, I move the tip. The second thing that I'm doing is I'm trying to make sure that most of my movement is driven from my shoulder blade. Not my shoulder, not my arm. Primarily my shoulder blade. So this requires you to have really good muscle control, but also flexibility within your upper torso. A good test to see this on how flexible your shoulder blades are, depending on certain characteristics, is literally just take your elbows and bring them together. If you can do this, you should have relatively good shoulder mobility. If you're not able to do it, the factor is not due to the lack of flexibility, you should get fairly close. So how do I make sure that I'm mostly using shoulder mobility when I do this? Is that I make my arm stay in the same position, almost locked, and I drive from my shoulder blade. So what kind of position am I looking for? So one, you're going to choose either a hammer grip or the saber handshake grip. Please look at the previous video on how to do either one. The saber grip is a little bit easier to do this. It's a little bit easier to draw or mark with it. But I'm going to try to lock my wrist, lock my elbow and upper arm, almost, not quite a 45, almost a 45. And then I'm just going to drive everything with my shoulder blade. So I want to make sure my shoulder blade stays down. I don't want it to come up here. I want it to stay down, so I always have this space between my arm and my head. And especially when I do these horizontal cuts, my shoulder blade is wrapping around my body, and as it does that, it allows my elbow to cross my center. And notice that my arm relatively stays the same. And I'm using my shoulder blade to do most of this driving. So what are the particular cuts, or how do I do the cuts when I do these? So again, first you're going to start up high, keeping our shoulder blade down, and imagine we are drawing with the tip. You're going to come down, then you're going to turn your hand down and outward, down and outward. Come up, again, drawing with the tip. You're going to flick out to the outside. Come down, making sure our elbow crosses our center. Reverse the direction, come up. Flick to the outside. Cut horizontal, reverse direction. flick to the outside, cut up at a diagonal. Again, elbow crossing center, reverse direction. Now from here, I'm going to turn my hand up and to the outside as much as possible. It is fine to kind of bend your arm a little bit more to get more of a drawing action, but then I'm going to come up here and then turn my hand outward. Cut down, flick to the outside. So now my palm is mostly going to be in the down position on these first cuts over. Come up at a diagonal, reverse direction. Flick out, palm down, reverse direction. Again, making sure elbow crosses center. Flick out, palm down, reverse direction. Then from here, I am back to the center. So that's a total of 16 cuts within a span of maybe 10 seconds. But the entire time that I'm doing that, I am making sure that I'm drawing with the tip, shoulder blade is down and is the main driver, and when I come across my body, my elbow crosses my center as much as possible. Without, if you didn't notice, without my body actually turning, I am mostly focusing on just arm movement and the movement of my sword. If you have a mirror when you do this, it is particularly helpful to, at some point, don't have to do it now, but at some point, all your cuts should be intersecting within the same general area. If you want to try to make that area like your solar plexus or slightly higher than that, perfectly fine. But you don't want to be doing a downward cut here, an upward cut up here, downward cut here, one horizontal cut here, and then another one here. You want to be fairly consistent with your cuts. And then once you've done one side, you do it with the other. Being comfortable using your weapon with both hands is fairly important for any particular reasons. You might be in a situation that, even if it's just a stick, having to fend someone off, something happens to your main hand. It'd be really nice if you're not completely useless with your offhand. So that is the first stage of using this drill. This particular drill we will use for the entire video. So the first stage was just arm movement, thinking about drawing and using my shoulder blade as the primary mover, making nice big movements. No tight movements, make them nice and big. The second phase with that is then adding body twist to the movement. And this gets fairly weird at the halfway point, because you start to figure out, okay, what feels more natural when I do these particular cuts? And there is a general rule that I will explain later on what makes the cuts feel or are better. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to start up top. And when we turn, we're going to turn our right hip and shoulder into the cut. Okay? Into the cut. We're going to flick our hand down and out, and then we're going to draw our right hip and shoulder away from the cut. Flick to the outside, right hip and shoulder into the cut, reverse, out of the cut. Horizontal into the cut, reverse, out of the cut. Into the cut, out of the cut. Now, here, going up, we're going into the cut, reset, into the cut. So you're going to do 2 into the cuts when your palm is up and out. Here, boom, reset, and then down and into the cut. Then you're going to come up in a diagonal out of the cut, reverse direction into the cut, horizontal out of the cut, reverse direction into the cut, diagonal out of the cut, reverse direction into the cut, and then we reset. So essentially, every time that you go to do a downward cut, you're going to reset and do an into the cut twist. Can you do one out of the cut? Yes, but it's very situational dependent. But by doing that, with the nature of this particular drill, it doesn't work, because now it's going to send you to the outside over here when we want to go in this direction. So a good rule of thumb to understand on which way that your body twists: if the blade is coming into the center, you are going to turn the main side of the body into the cut. If I'm coming into the center, I'm turning into the cut. If I'm coming away from my center, I am going out of the cut. This is a very good general rule that applies for most cuts, most movements, except for very particular situations where you might have to do the opposite. Okay, so we've done the drill with no body twist, just arm and drawing and working with our shoulder blade. We've done it with a body twist while still remembering to draw with the tip and work our shoulder blade. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add foot movement. And all of this is really going to do is with every cut, except for when we reset, you are going to be taking a step. So the basic way that you would do this, and it doesn't matter on how big of a step that you take, as long as you take a step. I've kind of found that the more that I get into the cuts, kind of the lower and like larger my stance gets. But you don't have to do that. You can take small steps. All that matters is that you are moving when you do these cuts. And probably the only thing I have to pay attention to is when you start working your stance to get wider. Try not, again, it's situation dependent, try not to be in the middle of your transition in order to make your cut. And you get a far better cut when both feet are planted on the ground, and then you can apply power into your cut. Now, if you're just trying to get like quick cuts and slashes in order to hamper your opponent, even if it's just to the hands, hitting while you are still within movement, perfectly fine, perfectly fine. So if we're going to add foot movement with our cuts, again, I'm still going to be drawing with the tip and primarily working my shoulder blade, even though I am moving and doing a more dramatic movement. And while still maintaining this same form within my hand, I don't want to be flexing my wrist or bending my arm or anything like that. Sword held up high, just come forward. Down cut, up, flick out, diagonal, reverse, horizontal, reverse, diagonal up, reverse, up cut, again, palm facing up and out. One, reset. Down cut, up, reverse, horizontal, reverse, diagonal, and then reverse and back to center. Now from here you can completely reset, or if you wish, from this position here after you reset from your last cut, just go into your downward cut and then go back in to your sequence. So also notice that we did all of those with just a single-handed sword. At any point in time you can start adding both hands. The main thing to kind of pay attention to is when you do the version where you don't twist, because you are using two hands now, it can feel a little cramped, especially when you start to do these uppercuts. So that's where when you turn your body, it will feel more natural. But kind of understanding what it feels like to be in an uncomfortable position when you do these cuts is valuable, because you will learn what feels more comfortable, how to make certain adjustments, and then when you start turning your body, they will feel a little bit better, and you will figure out, one, what kind of weapon system you might like, whether you like longer handles, shorter handles, single hand, or two-handed weapons. So I've mostly shown doing this with a sword. Can you use it with other stuff? Of course, you can use it with a knife, very obviously. It's just a short mini sword.
Dishonor on you!
But what about something like a stick or a staff or stave? The same rules can apply. You can choose to, depending on the martial system that you use, you might hold it on one end, you might hold it in the middle. Either way is fine. If you hold it on one end, your main attacking portion will be the front, even though you can adjust to use the back half. Or you can hold it somewhere in the middle, so that if you do a downward cut, you focus on the main tip, and then when you go to do the uppercut, you focus on the back half. So I project the front, boom, going just slightly past whatever my target area is, so not way down here, but maybe like towards the groin area. And then when I go to hit with the back half, I'm going to pull this back, and I'm going to project the back part of my weapon. And if that is the way you're going to practice this, please be aware that this front portion you want it to go to the side of your arm. You do not want it to go here, especially when you start doing some force. You will potentially crack or fracture parts of your shoulder or clavicle if you're not careful. So make sure that when you strike with a staff, you are mostly either going to go slightly into the armpit, or you're going to be coming to the outside of the bicep. All right, from here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a very good attack pattern to use. A simple down, up while switching sides. Down to armpit, and then I can go from here, left bicep, right armpit, right bicep, left armpit, left bicep, right, left, left, right, left, left. Then I can go horizontal. 1, 2, 1, 2. I can switch, boom. I'm just using the front tip, or it's a little bit harder with just the back end, as you can tell. It's really hard to get momentum to go from back end to back end. It's much easier to go from 4, back, turn, and then go into a forward strike. If you are using the weapon to where you're primarily holding it on one end, then because it is a blunt weapon, we don't have a particular edge to worry about. So your upward attacks can be a simple, I come down, can be a simple reversal of the technique. Boom. Diagonal, boom. Or you could choose to come down and then reverse like you would with a sword. You just happen to have a longer handle and a longer blade. Same thing when you do side attacks. You come from right to left and then just simple reverse, left to right. So I know this is another long video when it comes to weapons, but that is the thing. Even though weapons are quote unquote simple, to train them properly takes a lot of information and even more practice and dedication in order to do them. But again, like I said in the previous video, the most important and valuable thing you can do when it comes to any type of training, whether it's armed or unarmed, weapon or not, is to play. Simple play. You see something that someone does in a movie or whatever, as long as it's safe, go for it. Try it, see if you can make it work. If not, you just probably need a little more training, a little more play. I've got my most valuable training and insights into how to do things just by playing. So especially when it comes to weapons, your most valuable thing you can do is to play with the weapons and figure out what works for you for that particular system. I'm Matic, and I'll see y'all next time.